Hi everybody, Paul McFarlane here. Got my little spectacles on because this is small type, but in this great book, How Brands Blow. And I'm going to read to you at least part of a chapter called Adland Obsession with Youth Will Come at a Cost. Yes, this is the issue about ageism and all that, but it's more than that, but it's essentially that. So let's really get into it. Medically speaking, the term elderly refers to someone over the age of 65, and having once worked in medicine, I can tell you that a person of 65 or 70 does not take kindly to being called elderly. They may even respond by calling you something rather more colorful, in my experience. But if the medical definition of an older person seems a little harsh, the advertising industry's definition is nothing short of brutal. If you work in advertising and you're over the age of 35, you can expect to be called old. Oh, okay, I'm exaggerating. It's actually more like 30. People who work in big ad agencies will tell you that employers in their 30s, and the vanishingly few in the later decades, tend to be regarded with bemusement and suspicion, if not outright contempt. And they're the lucky ones. Older people looking for work in advertising face a monumental challenge. When not openly discriminated against, they are likely to encounter such veiled criteria as must be a digital native. The demographic makeup of the advertising industry sends a pretty clear message to people who have the gall to A, stay alive, and B, keep working past the age of 30. And that message is, fuck you, and the mobility scooter you rode in on. This is a great book. If you don't have a copy of this, I pity you. The industry is quite simply obsessed with youth. There are the endless lists of the 30 under 30, the constant talk about millennials, notwithstanding the fact that some millennials are now on the cusp of 40, the breathless predictions about Snapchat and TikTok and fuck. Okay, he made up that last one. It's actually called Tinder. Suffice it to say, then, that advertising does not go out of its way to make older people feel welcome, and the impact of that goes well beyond those who are personally affected. When you don't have older people involved in creating ads, those ads don't cater to older people. As Bob Hoffman points out, people aged over 50 are responsible for about half of all consumer spending, but most advertising completely ignores them. Consider, for example, that consumers over 50 account for around 60% of all car sales. Oh yes, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. I used to wear Shy Day t-shirts and I still have them. I wear this too. Consider, for example, that consumers over 50 account for around 60% of all car sales. And yet, when did you last see a car ad that didn't feature attractive 20-somethings zipping around to an electropop soundtrack? For some, if not most brands, this is commercial insanity. Alex Morel recently wrote an excellent article in which he compared the proportion of people aged over 50 in various industries. In professions such as science and law, he noted the figure is more than 30%. In advertising, just 6%, according to an IPA excellence paper. So, Adland inhabitants might be surprised to hear that people over 50 in other fields are sometimes consulted for their experience and wisdom rather than ridiculed for their Jurassic tendencies. In medicine, for example, it's generally recognized that older, more experienced doctors can get to the nub of a diagnostic problem more quickly because they're likely to have encountered it many times before. If medicine used the Adland model, however, almost all doctors would be forced out of the profession by the age of 40, and hospital spokespeople would justify this on the basis that only young doctors are savvy enough to understand the needs of tomorrow's patients today. That sounds ridiculous, right? But there is an undeniably pervasive opinion in the advertising industry that young people are more creative than older people. That opinion is not just discriminatory, it's also total bollocks! In his article, The Age of Creativity, Bob Hoffman reeled off a long list of people who have won the world's highest creative honors despite being veritably ancient in Adland terms. as he memorably concluded, people over 50 aren't creative enough to write a fucking banner ad, but they are creative enough to dominate in Nobels, Pulitzers, Oscars, and Emmys. Intrigued by this point, I recently asked people on Twitter who they would nominate for a hypothetical list of the 50 over 50 in advertising. The responses were by turns illuminating, disheartening, and inspiring. First, I learned that a similar list already exists. New Digital Age has recently started a series of interviews known as Rebels, Misfits, and Innovators, 50 over 50. Second, I discovered that most of the people over 50 in our industry are ridiculously creative and talented. To wit, Rory Sutherland quipped that everyone over 50 in advertising is great on the basis of survivorship bias. Survivorship bias, yeah. Tellingly, though, many of these people work for themselves or have started their own agencies. In some cases, this is by choice, but in others, it clearly stems from Adland's hostility towards older people. Several people have pointed out to me that this hostility may not be anything personal, that it's simply a matter of economic pragmatism. After all, why would an agency employ a 50-something when they could employ two 20-somethings for the same amount? But that's a false economy, of course. Mischief. Because ignoring the value of experience carries an opportunity cost. As the inimitable Cindy Gallup says, they don't understand that experience and expertise are incredibly time and cost efficient, and that they could be making huge amounts more money by hiring, promoting, valuing, and retaining older employees. According to Cindy, ageist attitudes in the advertising industry and in business more broadly are particularly egregious towards women. This wouldn't come as a shock to most people, given the low representation of women in senior roles and the apparently endemic culture of sexism at some agencies. If Cindy has anything to do with it, spoiler alert, she will, the situation will change soon enough. And fortunately, she's not the only one fighting for the cause. Jane Evans, an industry dynamo who runs her own agency, recently set up the Uninvisibility Project, which tells the stories of women over 50 who work in advertising creative departments. Jane started the project because she wondered whether there were any women over 50 making ads, which in itself speaks volumes. Fuck. That's the effect of this book. You may say fuck a lot. Clearly, there is still much to be done to address the problem of ageism in advertising, but addressing it is in everyone's interest: employers, agencies, clients, and consumers. Aside from the human cost of ageism, almost all brands are paying the price for the way things stand, so it will pay off in spades if we all take a stand. Generally speaking, a paucity of older people in advertising leads to a poor output and a missed opportunity for brands. Ultimately, that results in lower brand equity and lost revenue. It's time for advertising to take a more mature approach. I've read this book twice so far. This is the third time I'm going to be reading parts of it out loud because it needs to be. Now, here's the point. Speaking only for myself, my experience, this is not my opinion, this is my experience. The older I get, the faster I'm working. In other words, I literally look at a problem, strategize it, do my own account planning and research as I write, as I design, as I produce, and as I direct, and I see it in minutes, in fucking minutes. And I guess people don't believe me. But if you can do this, let's talk. I do this all day long at greater speed than ever because I have this lock trap of a memory. I can remember everything I've read, everything I've heard, everything I've watched, every person I've ever met, and I can combine those in ways faster and more fluid. Now, of course, I eat a very healthy vegetarian diet. I bicycle, I walk, I hike, and I've been meditating for decades. That probably helps. But the main thing is, I am Gandalf riding on Shadowfax, the fastest fucking horse in Middle-earth with the wisest, most powerful old bugger on top. I'm the wizard and I'm the horse. I'm the horse galloping at light speed. I value the past, the ancient wisdom of our forefathers upon whose shoulders I stand. what they stood for and that raw creativity they did in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and their 60s. And I'm hungry for the new. I'm hungry to see the best of what AI can do. I'm hungry to see what our new digital existence, and when we become pure consciousness, we can flip from planet to planet when we don't have bodies anymore. That actually excites me. But before that, I want to live in Amsterdam. I'm going to live with my body and my senses and bicycle and walk and live in the gezellige leven. I'm going to live the cozy life. So this book and the previous ones, by these two wonderful human beings, are so timely. They go right to the heart of what's going on in our industry and our world, and they are related. And the way that the book does it with this style of design is just so engaging. You can't put it down, and I haven't yet, because it fires me up. And I think people over 40, let's just call it what it is, people over 40, we need to band together and teach the world that we've got something younger people don't. And this is not a message against younger people. Not at all. Not at all. It is a message against the idea that only young people have the right ideas. And I think if you look at some of the most fabulous brands, which are all in decline, you can see that people who have had their hands on it are not the experienced people who know what cars really mean to the world today, what beer means then and today, what fashion means, etc., etc. The ability to do something faster comes from experience. Wisdom is the currency of experience. If you want to talk about economics, yeah, I'm really expensive, but I'm faster than anyone you've ever worked with. So actually, maybe you save money. If your agency makes $12 million a year doing something for a year, I'll charge you $6 million and I'll have it done in 3 months. That's what I mean. This book is absolutely awesome. If you're a young person, read this, because this is the bullshit world you work in right now. Get smart. And if you're a person over 30, over 40, or even over 50, read it, because this is what we all need to understand. All these books are good. And I told them I was going to read this online, and so I've done it. I've read a chapter. I may do more. Do you want to hear more? I'll do it. I'll do it.